Hi, I'm jack.shilley and welcome to the part 2 of the July garden review. In the second half of this review episode, I'm going to be focusing solely on the fruit that we've got growing in my garden here. We've got strawberries, cherries, nectarines, kiwis, raspberries, blackcurrants, blueberries, and now I think that's pretty much covered it. We're also going to be showing you the progress on the potatoes because I didn't quite fit it in the last episode, but we're mainly going to be focusing on the fruit in this episode. And first of all, I'm going to show you how to prune your cherry. This one is a dwarf cherry, but it's getting a little big for the spot it's got, so I'm going to be pruning that back. I'm also going to be showing you how the strawberries are getting on now that their fruit production is starting to slow, and also what else is happening in the fruit patch here. Okay, so what I've done is I've removed the front net, or lifted it halfway up so I can get access to the cherry. And the best time for pruning these cherry trees, fruiting cherry, it's best to do it on a dry day in midsummer because it reduces the risk of silverleaf developing. I did a practice cut here a little while ago just to see how it would go, and it's developed really well. We've got a nice swelling at the end here which shows that all the nutrients are being put into this bud here ready for next year rather than being wasted on just a massive long shoot which would be way out here by now. So when it comes to pruning them, you want to find a nice leaf node in which to cut it. These are dotted along the stem, and it's where you see the leaves beginning to form from. I wouldn't suggest cutting too far back into the old wood because then you're risking of losing flowers and things for next year. But what I am going to be doing is taking it back just a bit so that it opens up the whole area and it's not pushing so much against the fruit frame. So take this stem here for example. It's got lots of new growth and it's really shot out from here. This is the new growth, the lighter colour, and this is the old growth, the much darker colour here. So the lighter growth is here, which is what I'm going to be cutting off, and I'm going to take it right back to where it's grown this year. So you can see the difference between the old, much darker, and the new, much lighter. And then there's lots of buds coming here. So what I'm going to do is just make a cut with some nice, clean, sharp secateurs there, which then leaves the big amount of buds here, and all the energy is focusing on this area here, producing lots of new buds for next year. I'm also going to take this one off on the side here, and I think just nip that one out there. Now that's opened this area up here a lot more, and it's going to ensure that all the growth energy is focused on this tip here, which should mean that we get lots more fruit along this whole branch and at this tip here next year. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Next along the line on this main fruit patch is the kiwi and raspberries. Now unfortunately the spacing I haven't really done very well this year, and it's something I'm looking to improve on next year. Hopefully we'll have a slightly bigger fruit patch, but we're still debating that at the moment. But the raspberries, which are in this container here, which I showed you to plant, are doing well, but it's kind of crowded out the kiwi a little bit, which is stuck down here in this corner. It's not getting an awful lot of light, but it is growing, it's actively growing. Again, we haven't had any flowers on it this year. I just don't think the weather's quite good enough for it. It's not warm enough for long enough in order for it to grow and produce a flower and then subsequently the fruit afterwards. So, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and leave it maybe for another couple of seasons and then decide what to do with it. And the raspberries are doing really, really well. They've got these flowers that are opening. Well, the autumn fruiting one is doing really, really well. It's shot up this big new shoot, it's got loads of flowers on it developing, and hopefully we'll have a nice crop of those. Considering it's a first season cane, it's not too bad at all. The problem I have got with my raspberries is that the Glen Ample cane, which is a summer fruiting one here, has gone a very horrible yucky yellow colour. The flowers haven't formed properly and it just doesn't look like it's doing very well. I don't know whether it's too wet, too dry, whether it's being crowded out by the autumn one, because the autumn one seems to be doing really, really well, no problems at all. But the summer fruiting one, the Glen Ample, is just not doing well whatsoever. It just looks really, really sad and poor. It did have a few fruit, which was expected because it's its first season. A few, that's fine. What I might do is cut it down, see what it does next year, and then hopefully we'll have some more fruit. But the autumn one's looking fantastic, and I'll show you how to harvest raspberries nearer the time when all these lovely fruits that are developing are ready. Next up on our fruit patch is the blueberries here. This is the very mature bush that is, I'm not sure what to think of it at the moment. It did have a really, really heavy crop, but it just doesn't look as good as it used to anymore. and I'm thinking it might be time to replace it with a new one. The new one that we have got, that we planted next to it, is also doing really well. It's got lots of new growth coming through. It did have quite a decent crop this year, which is really, really pleasing to see, which obviously means it's happy where it is. And again, with all this new growth, hopefully next year it should be a lot better. And then I'm still debating on what to do with this blueberry here, whether to take it out, whether to give it another couple of seasons to see how the fruit performs thereafter. But it doesn't look as good as it used to, and it's got a lot of old wood, not a lot of new growth coming through unfortunately anymore, but it still has this heavy crop, which is why I'm still debating on whether to remove it or not. I'm feeding all the fruit crops along here twice a week with organic chicken manure pellets, and it seems to be doing the trick with most of them, really coming along well. And I'm also making sure that in dry weather, particularly the raspberries in containers, are watered thoroughly during the dry spells, as well as this whole fruit patch, especially when you've got young trees that are only sort of 2 to 3, maybe 4 or 5 years old. You need to keep them watered. The roots won't have gone out far enough yet for them to find their own water. So it's always good to give them a nice soak. Even if it's been raining for a little bit, give them another soak. Especially if the weather's dry like it is at the moment. I can't stress enough how important that is with new fruit trees, particularly in bushes. Keep them really, really well saturated in water because they're taking it up an awful lot. But the blueberries, as I said, are doing well, and hopefully the new bush will have a lot more fruit on next year, and we'll be able to say, okay, we're getting a nice quantity from that and we don't need this one anymore, and we can put another exciting new fruit bush in. This is our pine breed trough. It's looking really, really good now. Again, the warm weather seems to have helped bring them on quite a lot. We had a decent, well, we had a decent amount. It was a very few pine breeds this year, but I'm hoping for a bumper crop next year when they go into their second season. But what I am doing with these is leaving the runners on because I want more plants, just in case they're a bit more frost tender than normal strawberries and don't make it through the winter. I want some backup plants I can keep in the greenhouse for next season. That's why I'm leaving these runners on, and I'm going to have a video a little bit later on in the season showing you how to propagate these runners effectively so that it ensures you have a crop, for subsequent years. The taste of the pine berries, well, it was alright. They just taste like a very, very strong strawberry. They're very sweet, almost too sweet. White fruits with red seeds, quite nice, but I wouldn't say I'd have loads of them like I would regular strawberries. But they're doing really, really well in this trough here. As I said, I'm leaving the runners on to let them develop so that we've got at least some guaranteed for next year. And I'm feeding them fortnightly and watering them really well. As I said, same as regular strawberries, surface rooting, they dry out really quick, giving them lots of water, lots of food, seems to be doing them really, really well, and hopefully next year we'll have a bumper crop. Our strawberry plants are pretty much looking the same as they were in the strawberry care episode we did a couple of weeks ago. They're still producing masses of fruit. We're clearing out the runners constantly to try and keep that fruit production going as long as we can. We're keeping them well watered, well fed, and they're still doing really well, producing really big and unbelievably tasty strawberries. The frame is going to stay in place until the fruit production is really sort of finished, so a good another few weeks while this is still on. And then what we'll do is we'll allow the runners to come down a bit more, and then we'll pop them on. And as I said with the pine berries, we'll have an episode showing you how to do that. But yeah, haven't really changed much since the strawberry episode, doing really, really well. And then finally, just as a last minute addition into this fruit episode, not really fruit, I apologise for that, but I just didn't have time to squeeze it into yesterday's episode, is our potatoes that I showed you how to earth up a few weeks back, and they're doing amazingly well. These are the Rooster Potatoes, so they're that red potato. They're doing really, really well. Lots of vegetative growth on the top. I've also had a little bit of a rummage around underneath to see what's going on, and there's masses of roots and potatoes coming. They've got another few weeks before they're ready to harvest, but as soon as they begin to flower, or these get to a really decent height and they start to go a little bit brown or whatever like that, that's a good sign that they're ready to harvest. And of course we'll have a video showing you the harvest process. We'll have a weigh in to see how well they've done. But generally, if you keep them well watered, and I haven't fed these at all, but just kept them really well watered, and they've done really, really well despite that. And I haven't really had the need to use a feed on these this year. They just seem to be doing okay as they are. So as I said, we'll have a harvest update, keep them really well watered. They like to be quite well watered because all that water then goes into producing nice sized potatoes. And yeah, they'll be ready to harvest in the next few weeks. Well, that's it for part 2 of the July monthly review. It's been a hugely busy month, which is why we've had to split this episode into 2 parts, because there's just been so much developments so much happening because of this really nice warm weather that we couldn't fit it all into one, otherwise it'd just be stupidly long. Thanks for tuning in as always, and make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the brilliant content that I've got coming during August and the rest of the season. If you have any comments, queries or questions, don't forget to post a comment in the box below and share it with everyone else on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.